to the Executive Woman Podcast, Women Changing the Game. I'm your host, Dr. Sheila Robinson, and our mission is to empower women in business, leadership, and life. Each week, we bring you conversations with trailblazing executives and influential leaders who are breaking barriers and reshaping the business landscape. Through these discussions, we aim to provide you with the tools, the strategies, and the motivation to advance your career and make a lasting impact in both your life and career. Whether you are an aspiring leader, seasoned executive, or somewhere in between, this podcast is for you. It's dedicated to supporting your professional journey and fostering a community of empowered women who lift each other up. And speaking of lifting each other up, I'm thrilled today to introduce you to our guest speaker, Dory Donaldson. Just a little bit about Dory before I turn the mic over to her. Dory Donaldson is the co-founder of Convoy of Hope. She is also the vice president of Convoy Women. And Convoy of Hope was founded in 1994. And I have the background and everything, but I want to hear it from you, Dory. Please share with our listeners how Convoy of Hope was founded in 1994 by the Donaldson family.
Well, thank you for asking. That's a great question. It really started all the way back in 1969. My husband's parents were on their way to a business meeting and they were hit by a drunk driver. And my husband's father was killed instantly and his mom was injured very severely. She was in the hospital for months, and neither they nor the driver that hit them had insurance. So their family was forced to go on welfare. And she didn't have a college education or any formal training. So once she had rehabilitated and was able to go to work, she had to get a couple part-time jobs just to make ends meet. But her goal was to get off of welfare. And so she worked her way up in a company, and she really became an empowered woman, raising 4 small children. It was not an easy task. I think a lot of people in her life probably empowered her, but she had to work really hard to get to that point. And I think that's one of the reasons why at Convoy of Hope we feel so strongly about empowering women and girls. That's one of the areas that we work. It's not all we do. We do feed children and we train farmers, and we do a lot of work in the disaster relief space as well.
What an amazing story. Is it true that more than 130 million people have been served throughout the world of Convoy of Hope?
It's actually more than 250 now.
Wow.
So that number just keeps growing exponentially. So yeah, it's been an amazing journey. We're 30 years old this year, and we hope this is just the beginning.
It sounds like you are a convoy of angels, which is what is needed. We do know that this is a faith-based organization with a driving passion to feed the world through all of your initiatives and your community outreach and disaster. And we are just so grateful for all the work that you do, and we thank you for talking to us today. And our episode title is Empowering Women Through Global Impact. And so let's just jump right in. I really would love for you to just share a little bit about your personal background. I know that how the organization got started, but you're an incredible leader yourself. So we want to hear more about you and your career journey.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me, Dr. Sheila. Well, it's an unusual one. I guess a lot of us, even at Convoy of Hope, are not necessarily doing what we were trained to do. I was a musician and a teacher for many, many years. And there was an opening that seemed to be a space that I could fill at Convoy of Hope. So I never dreamed I would be here. And now I've been here a decade. And it's just been an amazing journey. I've absolutely loved it. It's been so purposeful and meaningful in my life. To be able to support women around the world and support the organization in different ways, in different roles. So I feel like I've grown tremendously, and I feel like in one season, we're prepared for the next. So we never know what we're going to be doing down the road, but everything that we're learning and the ways that we grow and the skills that we gain, we use those in the next season. So whatever that looks like, I think that's the cool surprises along the way.
That's amazing. So understand the work with Convoy of Hope. So how would you explain to our listeners how the Women's Initiative came about?
Yes. Well, it was actually started in 2010 with a grant from the USAID, and we were asked to partner with them in the country of Ethiopia. We happened to be in the country working at that time, and so we had partners and we had staff, and we thought, this sounds like a good thing. Let's try it. And so with the grant money, we were able to empower many more women than what the grant money was for because of our work that we were already doing there, connections and partners and so forth. And we saw how successful the program was. We thought, we've got to keep doing this. And so today, 14 years later, I guess, since that first cohort of women, we've empowered now over 148,000 women and girls through jobs training and education, and really helping them to escape poverty and to be able to provide for their families, send their children to school, and find value in themselves.
What's an example of a couple of those programs?
Well, our Women's Empowerment Program really entails girls' empowerment, and we've recently even started boys' empowerment, but really trying to change the mindset. If you can help a girl to realize her value and to stay in school, pursue job opportunities, and delay marriage, then hopefully when she becomes a mom, she'll be able to provide for her family. But for those women who haven't had the opportunity for an education or been forced into early marriage, had early pregnancy, and they've just not had the opportunities. We have so many opportunities in our country. We're so blessed. And for women in many parts of the world, they are devalued. They experience horrific things, crime, right? Gender violence, so many, the list goes on and on. And so for women that don't have those opportunities, we can come alongside them and provide opportunity. It changes everything. Melinda Gates says a powerful statement. She says that what extreme poverty really means is that no matter how hard you work, you're trapped. You can't get out. Your efforts barely matter. You've been left behind by those who could lift you up. But she also says that when you lift up women, you lift up an entire community. And I believe that is because moms want what's best for their kids. They'll do anything to ensure that they survive and that they thrive. And so the most effective way to eradicate hunger and poverty is really to empower moms. And that's exactly what we're doing through our jobs training program, which addresses every part of a woman's life. So, we're looking at the whole person. As you said, we want to empower people in their life, not just in one part of it. So, we look at the women and we talk about, how do you take care of yourself? How do you feel about yourself? We want efficacy to be at the core of it. And we want women to be able to make good decisions for their futures, learn how to take care of their children better, even gardening, just simple skills, life skills. And then the women are taught financial skills like profit and loss, market analysis, diversification, how to save for emergencies and balance budgets. And really, once they become healthier as a person in mind, body, and spirit, then they're ready to go on for vocational training and really learn a job skill that will give them the tools that they need to provide for their families.
Dory, that is beautiful. When we started this conversation, you started out saying that you used to be a teacher. I hear the teacher in you, because teachers teach with a heart. If they're in that classroom, they're in that to make a difference. And your leadership exudes of that. Well, I want to talk a little bit about your leadership journey, because what you are sharing with myself and the listeners, that, being a leader in the nonprofit sector, it is extremely valuable. And so will you talk a little bit about leadership and service, being a leader in the nonprofit world, and how that changed from an educator to a nonprofit leader, what that means to you, that meaningful change, and really how they intertwine and support each other?
Yeah, it's true. There's so much overlap. It's kind of ironic in a lot of ways. Life is about educating. I mean, I'm a mom. I have 4 daughters, so I'm constantly feeling like I'm educating them. And sometimes they say, okay, Mom, we heard that 1,000 times. You don't need to say it again. But, right, as a teacher, you just are constantly trying to teach. And I think that that's at every level as a leader, whether you're leading your team, you're leading your family, whatever it is that you're leading, you're going to be constantly teaching. And so as a part of teaching girls in the developing world and in some of the communities where we're working, very vulnerable communities, if you can empower a girl and you can teach a girl to make good decisions for her future, that changes everything. And if you can teach a woman that she can learn, she does have value, she is worth it. She can make good decisions, right? And she can change the trajectory of her family. Just because it was this way doesn't mean that it always has to be that way. When my husband lost his father and he was the oldest of 4 children, he was kind of thrust into a role of having to be father, confidant to his mother, even in some ways, even supporting them, getting jobs as a high school student and working his way through college. He learned that it's his decisions that will drive what he can accomplish in life. And then he had to kind of get to the end of himself and realize what was really most important in life. Was it, making more money, or was it giving his life away? And so I feel like I've been on the journey with him, but in my own career journey as a teacher, I was investing in students all the time. But then when you move into the nonprofit world, you realize there are people that they maybe can't even thank you. They don't even know always necessarily what you're doing for them, but you're able to still give yourself away, investing in others. And I can't think of anything that would be more joyful than that, because life isn't about what you can get. It's about what you can give away. It's a lot better principle to live by and a lot better way to be happy.
I can just hear in you how rewarding that is, and how much that reward is more than just compensation. And
yes,
I also sense that there are a lot of success stories that must be, you must be so proud of. Is there any particular success story you'd like to share with our listeners?
Well, one of my favorites is a woman that I met in Tanzania, and her name was Dorcas. And I met her on several occasions, actually. But the first time I met her, she was a beautiful Maasai woman, but she was very sober and very sad. You could tell she was very sad. She had gone through a very traumatic experience. Her husband, he was very successful, but he was killed in a plane crash. And her in-laws disowned her. And I don't understand that piece of it, but her in-laws disowned her. And because she had no marketable skills to speak of, she was unable to provide for her family, and she was thrust into extreme poverty. Extreme poverty in the developing world means that you make probably less than $1.90 a day. And it's knowing that there's no safety nets for you, right? No guarantee of food, let alone medical help of any kind. So it's dire. These women, many of them have come from dire situations, and she was very distraught. So she had just started the program. We had a few moments at lunch together, and she could speak a little bit of English. And even though language was an issue, we grew up in different places, we looked different, I felt her heart. Our hearts were the same. And I saw how difficult her life had been and how much she loved her children. And the next time I saw her, maybe about a year and a half later, a couple of years later at the most, I saw her and I was like, who is that? She looks so familiar to me. And they said, oh, that's Dorcas. I couldn't even believe it. I was floored. She looked completely different. She was walking with her shoulders back. She was full of joy and confidence because she owned a successful jewelry business and she was feeding her own children. She even had morphed. What she first started when I first met her was she was doing something else, selling something else. And now she was making jewelry and selling jewelry. So again, she learned probably diversification in that maybe what she was doing wasn't really, maybe there were 5 people doing the same thing on her street, but she was taught, let's see what else we could do. If this isn't working, let's change directions. And so it was powerful to see the change in her. And when she saw me, she recognized me too. And we just embraced and hugged and had the best reunion ever. it was just marvelous. It was so miraculous. I couldn't even believe it. The confidence and the joy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, that was a beautiful story, and we can really hear the transformation that took place. And to think that Convoy Hope has expanded its reach to over 130 million people worldwide. Wow, this is unbelievable. Would you share? And I know that you work with, because you're faith-based group, you're able to work with a lot of churches, and I'm assuming that's how you're able to get globally. But was there any particular things that drove your organization to want to make this type of global impact?
Um, wherever you see needs, you want to make a difference. And there are churches everywhere. There's people who care about people. And so we're like, if we could mobilize these people to make a difference in their own communities, what would that do? And we've seen that happening all over the world because there are churches everywhere, as I said. So you do that, you give them the tools to reach their communities, and that's really what Convoy is all about, is really empowering those churches, empowering communities through asset-based resources and finding out what they have in their hands already that they can use, and then working with them and to identify those things. And then let's say, okay, maybe we could just do a little of this. Maybe we could just do a little of this. And maybe that would just help propel them to where they need to be. And we've seen it time and time again through the training of farmers, feeding children in schools, because we know if children are fed at school, they're more likely to stay in school. Otherwise, they're probably going to be out scavenging for food off garbage heaps, or begging in the streets. And their parents want them to be fed. So if the parents don't have to feed them, they're going to send them to school. And that allows children to have a future. So, we see all of these things working together. And then when you can empower that local church to help provide in their communities, then that's transformational for the entire community. And we've seen that time and time again.
Yeah, I can just hear this is what I call purposeful leadership. And I think that, when you are working in your purpose and you're doing things that is rewarding and that you love, and truly making a difference, that's truly purposeful leadership. But as in any leadership role, there are challenges. And so share with our listeners, maybe a few challenges that you've had to face as a leader and how you overcame them.
Wow. Well, there have been plenty, that's for sure. I think that some of the challenges probably have been in the magnitude of the need, sometimes knowing really where do you go because the need's everywhere. But being strategic and making sure that wherever we go, we can be successful. And we need to have good partners that we can work with. We have staff all over the world. We have over 600 employees at Convoy of Hope, and I believe over 200 of them are all around the world in the countries where we're working. So having the right partners is critical. There have been times when some of the challenges have been certainly some of the obstacles in those places at times have been challenging. Sometimes government regulations, sometimes just in the disaster areas where we work, sometimes just the challenge of getting there. We've learned a lot through the years by trial and error, a lot of mistakes made, but learning how to work with others as well, has been critical. When we go into a disaster situation, we're working with FEMA, we're working with the Red Cross, we're working with Samaritan's Purse, all other organizations. We have to be a good team player and work together to make an impact and the need and figure out, okay, what's the immediate need? How can we meet that? And then what are some of the long-term solutions going to need to be? And just figuring all of that out can be challenging at times.
Wow. And I hear resilience and resources, listeners. That's what I'm hearing, that your resilience is you're reeking of resilience because, resilience is about, feeling, this challenge and struggle, but recovering quickly and utilizing your resources to get back on your feet. Excellent leadership. So let's talk just a little bit about your vision for the future and, the future of Convoy of Hope and Convoy Women, including any upcoming projects and goals that you may have to further your global impact.
As far as women's empowerment goes, we are on a track to empower 250,000 women and girls every year. That's a 2030 goal. We call them 2030 goals at Convoy of Hope, but oftentimes we meet our goals ahead of schedule. We're also on a track to feed 1 million children by that same year and train 100,000 farmers by 2030 in a year's time. So, those are lofty goals, but we've often found that if you don't set a goal, you're not going to get there. So, we're working on infrastructure to meet those goals and ways to get there that I think are the team's working really hard to do that. We also have regional distribution centers that we've just started opening across the U.S. We have one in Sacramento, and we're about to have one in Atlanta. And those are going to be kind of regional hubs, so to speak, where we can replicate what we have here in Springfield, Missouri, the middle of trucking Mecca, right? Where we can get goods quicker to the need. So if we're in Atlanta, we can respond a lot faster to a hurricane that hits the coast of Florida or the East Coast out of that particular hub. And we'll have vehicles there that can go and be able to respond the moment that the storm is either passed or we're able to get in to help with immediate relief. And so those hubs, we want to have those all over the U.S. so that we can meet needs, because we know that America is facing a lot of hunger crisis as well.
Yes.
And so we are addressing that as well, not just in times of disasters. Disaster can include a lot of things. It can include natural disasters. It can include war. Man-made disasters, right? All of the above, as well as poverty, which, as you know, is a complex issue in different parts of the world. It looks different. And so learning to work in the places we're working, we have to be able to adapt culturally as well. And that's the strength of having our team members on the ground that work with us, but that we can say, okay, let's talk about the needs of your people. How can we meet those needs? How can we best serve them? Will this be effective there? What do they need? And that kind of thing. So there's a collaborative spirit, but also good guidance and leadership as well. So we have models, but they're very flexible and pliable as we look at all the cultural contexts in which we work.
Wow, this is great stuff. Okay, so I know you sleep well at night because you are doing some amazing things. So what is your practical advice on leadership for women who aspire to make a difference in their communities, especially globally?
I think looking at the needs that are there, identifying the needs, and then what do you have in your hands to help? I think the way that you help is going to be determined by who's around you and your ability to do that. I think being a servant leader is incredibly important. Being humble, don't walk around with a chip on your shoulder. Earn your keep. Be right there with neck and neck with everybody that's making a difference, and don't feel ashamed for your passion. I think following your heart and looking for ways to meet those needs and bring a lot of people along with you, and don't lord over people. That servant leader is going to be way more effective if you bring others with you and you work as a team. And good leadership doesn't mean that you let people walk all over you and that you don't lead, because you still need to lead, but lead with a humble heart and from that place, and you'll see such a difference if you do.
Well, Dory, we certainly have had our lesson in purposeful leadership today. I just salute you and your organization for the work that you're doing. Would you share with our listeners and myself how we can get involved with Convoy of Hope or similar organizations, and where we can go visit your website or hear more about what you're doing? And like I said, for those that are out here are able to get involved.
Yes, we'd love to have you involved, whether it's through volunteering or whether it's through financial support, your prayers, your advocacy, using your voice. We're on social media. You can find us at Convoy Women on Instagram, Facebook. Convoyofhope.org is our website. You can get everything there. It's just a wealth of information about what we do and how you can be involved. It's a great starting point, convoyofhope.org.
Thank you so much, Dory. And that brings us to the end of today's episode. We hope our listeners have found this conversation as enlightening as I have. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and leave a review. Your support helps us to continue bringing you these valuable discussions as we had this valuable discussion about purposeful leadership. Remember, you can find links to resources mentioned in today's episode, as well as information on Convoy of Hope in our show notes. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Dory.
Thank you, Dr. Sheila. My pleasure.
Bye-bye.